Hello, everyone, and welcome to How I Built This Resilience Edition. How are you all doing today in year 7 of the pandemic? As most of you know, this is where we're exploring creative ideas and ways that businesses are dealing with the strains of the economic crisis. In the window next to me, am I pointing the right way, is Jeremy Zimmer. Jeremy is the CEO of United Talent Agency. It's one of the biggest in Hollywood. They represent everyone from Kevin Hart and Will Ferrell to Harrison Ford and Charlize Theron, and production companies, YouTubers, news reporters, esports players, even me, by the way. Anyway, the industry that UTA represents, entertainment, has been hit really hard, as you know, during the pandemic. Studios are shut, films aren't being filmed, TV is on hold, and of course, live events aren't happening, except online right here. Jeremy, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And by the way, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, please submit your questions. As I've been saying, this is the only time I get to ask your questions. So please keep them coming because I love them. It's so fun. Okay, first of all, Jeremy, how are you doing? Just like as a human being. I mean, you run this huge talent agency, but you've been at home for the last 4 or 5 months. How are you doing?
As a human being, I'm weathering a series of ups and downs, emotional highs and lows, and, trying to be aware of and empathetic towards the difficulty that this is bringing on everyone. And at the same time, in my own home, I have 3 kids living at home, or one college-age daughter who's now home from college, and, wondering and concerned about the impact that this will have on them and their normal, natural experience of growing up. And so, it's an incredible sort of wave of emotion. I wake up Monday mornings, walk down into my office at home and go, oh my God, not this again. But then somehow enough good things happen and there's enough ups and downs that, by the time Thursday rolls around, I'm like, wow, we just did another week.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm doing.
Yeah. Take us back to March. When did you realize that this was going to have a huge impact on your business?
Well, I don't know that in March I could understand or grasp the full impact that it was going to have, but I certainly remember, it was I was supposed to go to a Laker game, and I was sort of debating. I had been to a Clipper game that Sunday, and it was kind of weird, and we were all nervous about shaking hands. We were doing a lot of the elbow bump thing, and then it was Thursday, and I was supposed to go to a Laker game, and I was sort of debating, should I go, should I not go? And then the news came out about Rudy Gobert, and then suddenly the game was canceled, and boom. And that was the first sign of, wow, they canceled basketball games? Like, that seems really a big thing.
Yeah.
And then beyond, and then I think the season was canceled shortly thereafter, and then boom, it was on. And then realizing and understanding the full and complete impact of this has been something that's been, really, it was hard to comprehend in the beginning.
Yeah. You guys, UTA, like other talent agencies, has been affected by this. You have had to have furloughs and pay cuts. You're not taking a salary. Talk me through a little bit about how this has affected UTA so far.
Well, so far it's affected us because, first of all, everybody in the company participated in a salary reduction of some form or another. That was a really difficult thing to ask everybody to join in this sacrifice. But, what we realize is the overall financial health of the company, sustaining the company for the duration, is going to be a more positive and ultimately important thing for people than, trying to maintain everybody's salary at that current level in the short term. So that was a difficult sacrifice for everyone to make. And then we chose to make some furloughs. We took advantage of the government, the fact that governments, were supporting people who had been furloughed. So that's been, that we were able to lessen the pain for people there. And so far, we've been just trying to keep going and keep everybody's spirits up and trying to figure out ways to be creative and thoughtful and of service to the clients when we can't just, make a deal and send them off to go do a movie or book a show and have them go perform in front of 20,000 people.
Yeah.
So, creating new business opportunities for clients has been a big priority for us.
The sort of the portfolio of which you represent is enormous. Live events and news reporters and anchors, and obviously films and production and YouTubers and esports and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the film industry first. Are movies being made right now? Like, what's going on in Hollywood? Are the sound studios and the production facilities dark?
For the most part, the sound studios and production facilities in most of the U.S. are dark. There are movies being made in New Zealand. There was some production being done. I think Tyler Perry's doing some production in Atlanta. People are going up to Toronto, up to Vancouver to begin looking at production there. I'm not exactly sure. I think there's some production being done in London. We have some things coming back, but it's still very slow, and we're hoping that this new wave doesn't shut down whatever progress has been made.
Wow. Just a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, please, you can submit your questions for Jeremy Zimmer, questions about Hollywood, the entertainment industry, talent agencies. Please do submit those. That's amazing. So for the most part, sound studios, production studios, facilities in the U.S. are dark. What does that mean? Does that mean that in 6 months' time, there's going to be just a massive slowdown of new content, of new movies?
There are some, there has been a backlog of releases. So movies that were in post-production being finished or being prepared for distribution, those movies haven't been distributed because the theaters have been dark. So there is a backlog of new theatrical releases that are available, that will be available when theaters open back up. Some studios have taken to selling some of their product direct to streamers and releasing them direct on streaming or on electronic sell-through. So there will be some flow of new material, but that will winnow down, I would imagine, pretty quickly. And for companies that are relying on pure television production, that's going to winnow down much more quickly.
Yeah, we just heard about Tenet, the Christopher Nolan film that was supposed to come out, and first it was going to come out in July, and then in August, and this was going to be like the tentpole movie that was going to save the summer movie season. It's now being postponed indefinitely, probably to 2021. Can movies recoup their the production costs by going direct to streaming, to video? I know there have been some examples, Trolls and some other movies. Is that a business model that could work?
I think it's a movie that could work, but it'll be dependent on how expensive the movie is, and it'll be dependent on how much people can charge and how much the audience will show up. It's hard to know, but you could imagine that. Let's take the new Jurassic Park movie. If Universal ultimately elected to put that out at $100 a household, maybe people would pay for it. And maybe, if you got, 5 million people to pay $100, maybe that would, cover the cost of the production and put everybody into profitability. I really don't know, but I think we're going to see people starting to test different ways to monetize the content that they're making as the theatrical business remains in question.
Yeah. And same thing with television, right? Television production for studios facilities are also dark.
Yes, they are right now, for sure.
And will that mean, is there also sort of a backlog on television programs that are not being released, or are we going to enter a period in like a year's time when there's actually a short, it seems weird because there's so much television, but is there a world where there could actually be a shortage of new TV?
I think that'll happen perhaps more quickly than the theatrical, because the television gets released when it gets produced. So it's not like they've been sitting on movies waiting for the theaters to open. As soon as something's done and available, whatever they schedule it for that release. So I don't think people, especially right now with such an unbelievably captive or captured audience, people want new material now. I don't think streamers or networks are sitting on their best stuff waiting for another time. I think they're throwing whatever they can out at the audience. So the question will be, that'll be to me, a bigger concern is how do they keep the supply of fresh content going?
Talk to me a little bit about your business model and how it has shifted over the past few months, or how it could shift over the next year. I mean, you depend on films and movies and films and TV and live events happening. You broker those deals, and you represent, very famous people around the world. So how do you kind of think about what you do, and how your business earns revenue given these really challenging circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can really do. We try to create new opportunities and new sources of revenue for clients. And so that can be clients who have the time and ability to go into publishing, or clients who have the time and ability to go into podcast, or musicians who are going to do live streams. And you try to create and maximize those kind of opportunities for people. But it's not going to replace the day-to-day revenue that comes from actors starring in TV shows and movies, writers and directors and producers creating television, and musicians being out playing a full tour, or athletes playing a full season. That's going to be that is going to be compromised. And what we have to play for, which is what every retail environment, restaurant, anybody in the hospitality business, we are all trying to manage our resources as carefully as we can, so that when things start to come back to normal, we will be healthy and able to take advantage of, the return to normal, or whatever normal will be.
Yeah, exactly. Right. What kinds of what are you seeing creative performers doing at this moment? I mean, it seems as if everyone's kind of becoming a YouTuber, right? Very famous people. I think Jimmy Fallon's made jokes about that too. What are you seeing right now? What kind of creative things are you seeing performers doing that is capturing your attention?
And we did an incredible thing with our client Cascade, where he did a show on the overlook at the Grand Canyon. So we were able to, he was able to secure that as a place, and we were able to help him arrange for a live stream of a full show shot in that incredible location. That's an example of how performers are thinking about what they want to do and how they can use this moment to do things that aren't normal, that don't need the full audience, but then give them an opportunity to reach out to their fans in an environment that's going to be exciting and dynamic.
Jeremy, we had Julia Hartz, the founder of Eventbrite, on the show a week or so ago, and we talked about live events. A lot of your business, obviously, live events. You support live performances. I mean, what's your sort of prognosis? I mean, do you think that live events will come back in full as they were in January of 2020? Or do you think that we'll see a hybrid of live and virtual? Or do you think that more and more of these events will become virtual?
I think what we'll see is I don't think that the categories of entertainment that are come to fore during this time will go away. I think they'll be added to the many ways people consume content. I think live events will come back. I think people will yearn to be out with other people and have that experience. I think we'll go through a period of time where we have to feel safe and we have to feel comfortable. We have to believe that, whether it's science or time has solved the problem to the large extent. But I do believe that people have always, since the dawn of time, wanted to congregate in groups and have experiences together. And I don't think that'll change. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah. Jeremy, what do you say to your agents, right? You've got a lot of, let's say you're a young agent or you're an agent at UTA. And so much of what you do depends on face-to-face interactions, lunch meetings, showing up, being there face to face. So much of what you do is like there's personal interaction. And now it's all happening remotely. Like you are running a company of 900 plus people, hundreds of agents. How do you, what kind of guidance are you giving your agents in terms of developing new clients and building up their roster when they can't actually physically see people and meet with people?
Yeah, I think what we're focusing on is staying in contact with the clients we have and making sure they feel that we're there, we're connected, we're trying to be creative, we're trying to help them think through, what steps they can be taking, or, in some cases we're going backwards, particularly with writers where, so many writers have written really good scripts and really good projects that somehow didn't come together. And in the hustle bustle of daily life, you kind of move on to the next thing. So we're also looking backwards and remembering the script that someone wrote 8 years ago for Paramount, and then 3 Paramount regimes changed, but the script's still really good. And how can we bring that back to life? So we're doing that. And, I'm also trying to remind them, look, I remember, when 9/11 happened, I sat there and said, well, I'm never flying again. And, I don't know, a year later, 6 months later, I was flying all over the place. Now it was different. Suddenly now I'm flying. I have to take my shoes off. I have to go through this. I have to go through that. It's all different. But we adapted and that became the norm. And I think that, people have to understand that, when you look back on events you're facing, they're often not nearly as awful as when you're facing them. When I'm looking towards a problem, it seems it's going to be all consuming and impossible to surmount. And when I look back on that same problem, I can go, wow, that was a pain in the ass, but here's what I learned from it. Here's how we overcame it. Here are the people that helped me get through it. And in retrospect, it was actually, I learned a great deal, and I'm stronger having been through it.
Jeremy, I want to go to some questions we're getting in from Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. Let me start with this question from Noel Mesfin from Facebook. And I know you addressed this a couple weeks ago in an email to your team, your staff. He asks, what is UTA's plan for hiring and supporting a greater number of people of color in its agent ranks?
Well, that's it's a really important part of our go forward initiative. We are going to be as aggressive as we can be and as sort of streamlined as we can be to develop, and support a much more diverse agent force. It started with the fact that we've, in the last year, we've actually hired 3 African-American division heads at the company. So we've been able to find really great executives. We just had to be either, in some cases, a little more creative, or in some cases, a little more aggressive. And we're going to continue on that path and be as assertive and rigorous as we can be about that.
How much of a role do you think that talent agencies like UTA and the other big 3, there's the big 4, but the other 3 have to play in making Hollywood and the entertainment industry more inclusive and more representative of the entire American population, not just people on screen, but people also behind the scenes too?
Well, I think we play a big role. To me, the role is very much driven by and guided by the people in front of the camera. It's the artists who need to have a voice and can tell stories, and those stories will help us all change the way we look at the world and change our priorities and help us focus on the problems. And I think that, representing dynamic new voices and diverse voices and making sure they're being given every opportunity, and in some ways, really being jumped to the front of the line in some cases, I think is a really important burden for representation. And as part of that, we need to have colleagues that those artists can feel as comfortable as they can with anybody, and that so when they look at their team of agents, they want to see people on that team that look like them and represent the world they come from.
There has been a long simmering dispute between the Writers Guild of America and the big four talent agencies over compensation. It's complicated. It's around this idea called packaging. I won't get into it, but basically the writers have argued that, and by the way, Planet Money, an NPR podcast, did a really cool episode on this, so check it out. The writers have argued that they have not been fairly compensated for the work they've done on TV and movie scripts. Just a couple weeks ago, I think last week, UTA struck a deal with the Writers Guild of America. The other three talent agencies, I think, are still working out what they want to do. But talk a little bit about the decision to strike a deal with the Writers Guild of America. It's been widely seen as a victory for the writers. I mean, is this also sort of a realization that we're in this pandemic and we've got to kind of resolve this thing right now?
I mean, by the way, you said it is complex, and it is wildly nuanced. There are, I could argue, 14 different sides of the conversation with almost equal vigor. But at the end of the day, we started as a writers agency. We really believe that so much of that really it's all about storytelling.
Right.
So what we wanted to do was we wanted to get back in business with writers, and we wanted to be a place where writers feel like we are listening to their concerns, and we wanted to get back in business with them. Do I agree with everything that the Writers Guild believes about packaging? I really don't. Do I believe that there were a lot of benefits to writers in packaging? I really do. Do I believe that we were doing something illegal or scandalous or anything like that? I don't. We were incredibly transparent. It was all available, and everyone seemed to be on board with it. And but things change, so we accept that they change. We've now reached a deal with the Writers Guild. We feel like both sides prevailed, and that there were some things about what they initially wanted that were completely unacceptable to us, and many of those demands have been dropped, and that was very, very important to us. And we've given in on packaging, which I think was obviously very important to them.
Right.
So I'm just excited we can go back to working together, and hopefully we'll be able to put great TV shows together and continue to get great results for our clients.
And from the sounds of it, there's going to be a need for a lot of TV in like 6 months because no one's making TV right now.
It sounds like, I think there's going to be a need for a lot of TV for a long time. People seem so excited and compelled by what they can watch, and it seems like there's going to be a need for a very long time. And we have a very, very aggressive and competitive marketplace with these streamers who are really fighting each other to get the very best stuff. And that's going to be tremendous benefit for clients who are going to be able to take advantage of that competition.
We got a question in from Scott Mueller. He asks, in terms of going back to the live events conversation, how do you think streaming will play into artists' touring plans? Like, do you see a world where bands are gonna sell as many tickets as they're legally allowed to sell, for live and virtual events, and basically make up their revenue that way? I mean, is that a possibility?
I don't know that they'll make up the same revenue from those events, but I think they will be able to earn a living doing live events, especially if we can figure out the right ways to sort of geo-fence a live event. So if you want to do a live event for, Portland and Seattle, you could sort of do it for those two areas. So you can kind of replicate a touring model, but it'll require really putting together something that's going to be very dynamic on screen, which will not be a straight up stand on a stage and do a performance. So how do we create the events to be very dynamic and engaging? And that'll be part of where that business goes going forward.
Got it. So like if you wanted to see DJ Khaled, you represent DJ Khaled, right?
I do.
Okay, so
number one hit out right now.
He does. All right. So let's say you want to see DJ Khaled in Miami, but you live in Los Angeles. You couldn't. You'd have to wait until it was available. It's like sort of like when I want to watch baseball, I can't watch the Oakland A's on MLB TV because I'm in the Bay Area.
Right.
right? So it's sort of like
Unless you
that.
buy the Oakland A's ticket, which allows you to watch them anywhere, and you may be able to buy the DJ Khaled ticket, which allows you to watch it from wherever you are. So there'll be different kinds of ways and different kinds of platforms that get built, and different ways to have these experiences.
And are those innovations really being driven by the situation now? Are they being fast-tracked because of what we're experiencing now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, every crisis has its innovation, and there are a lot of innovations being done around the music business and the touring business. People are looking at ways to keep an audience engaged. And what's interesting, I mean, I think Spotify broke its streaming record maybe yesterday or the day before. More music was streamed last week on Spotify than ever before.
Wow.
So the hunger and appetite for music is as big as ever, and we're just seeing it over and over again. And we're seeing the way artists just explode into the public consciousness overnight, where, 3 years ago, Billie Eilish was someone no one had ever heard of, and wow. And I mean, Juice WRLD just released his new album, and posthumously, it's a gigantic hit.
Huge record.
And so what we're seeing is the incredible thirst for great music. And I just have to believe that when people can go out and experience it live again, they will.
Yeah. I think 50% of Spotify's streams yesterday were my children listening to Juice WRLD's record over and over and over again.
Well, we certainly did a little listening at my house as well.
We're getting a bunch of questions in from people who want to be agents. So I'll kind of ask this. This is Jeremy Zimberoff asks a version of this question. What do you look for people who want to be, who want to become talent agents? A, and B, like, well, let's start with that question. What do you look for in people who want to work for you and be agents?
I mean, one of the most important things I look for is somebody who has a real passion for the product. I want to be an agent because I love music and I love artists, and I want to figure out a way to work with them, and I believe in the journey of the artist, and I see value in being a part of the team for an artist and what I can bring to the party. That's, to me, I know it sounds almost Pollyannish, but I think it's so important. If you want to represent filmmakers, you have to understand and value the power of storytelling through the cinematic medium. I know that sounds academic, but it's real. And if you can't sit down and tell me, who your 10 favorite filmmakers are and why, or 5 favorite filmmakers and why, then how are you really going to communicate to a filmmaker why he or she should let you represent them? And I look for passion.
Got it. All right, last question for you. And this is coming from a bunch of people. I'm going to kind of put them all together, including JT Cornelius, who asked this question from Facebook. So when you think about, the future of this industry, we've talked about streaming and events and how all these, how coronavirus and COVID has kind of fast-tracked huge changes and disruptions. I mean, with respect to what you do and other big agencies do, I mean, do you think that the last sort of 5-6 months and maybe the next 6-7 months will disrupt the existing model of agents and representing talent and brokering deals? Or do you actually think that this will make the work you do even more relevant and more powerful?
I think I don't believe it will change the work we do and require us in some ways to be more entrepreneurial, but I don't believe it will disrupt in an adverse way. I think what it'll do is, first of all, if you're an artist at home going, oh my God, what am I doing? The person you can rely on and talk to about the various opportunities that are out there and how to take advantage of them, I think, are agents. If you think about a platform like ours, if you are interested in the media business, almost in any sense, podcast, fine arts, music, television, sports, esports, video games, influencer, publishing. We have expertise in all those areas, and that expertise is readily available to you. And so if you're sitting there right now as an artist thinking, here's where I want to go, you need an agency to help you understand this incredibly diverse and complex media business that we're in today.
When you think about this moment now, Jeremy, running and leading an organization in an unprecedented crisis, what do you want to take away from you? What do you want to take away with you from this time? When you look back in 5 years and say, that was a crazy moment, but this is what we learned. This is what we did. This is how we kind of operated. And we want to kind of take this value with us into the future. What would it be?
Look, I think that what this time has done for me is it has really allowed me to reflect on fragility and develop more empathy. When I first started hearing about this and people were scared of the virus, I was like, oh, come on. What, are you kidding me? Let's go. Da, 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 da. I lived through the 70s. This is fine. Da, da, da. And that was such an uneducated and unsympathetic view. And to understand that people are experiencing the world in so many different ways, and there's so much fear and there's so much anxiety out there, and to be able to be there as a friend and as a supporter and as a listener and as a concerned colleague is a really, really valuable characteristic now. And I think going forward, I think leadership today is not sort of, you need to be strong, but you need to be quiet. You need to be intense, but you need to be concerned. It's like this, it's two different, it's almost playing offense and defense always at the same time. And that's been a really great challenge and a difficult challenge for me, and something I've learned a lot from.
Jeremy Zimmer, co-founder, CEO of United Talent Agency. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I'm a huge admirer of yours and what you do. So thanks for allowing me to join you.
Thank you. And before we go, just want to say hello to a couple people watching. John Nowdy from Riviera, Michael Pinheiro in Tampa, Florida, Stephen Bacharach in Naples, Florida, Sheila DeCastro in Washington, D.C., Kylan in Hayward, California, and many others. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. On Friday, we're going to be back here, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, with Taha Bawa, the founder of Goodwall. Goodwall is a community for next generation students and professionals to connect, kind of like LinkedIn for Gen Z. So check that conversation out with Taha Bawa on Friday at noon Eastern time right here. Please come join us and bring your questions. Spread the word if you know anyone who'd find these interesting or important or, validating or helpful if they're running a business or freaking out or whatever. This is your community. So come join us. We're here every Tuesday and Friday at noon Eastern time. Tell people about us. If you want to see any past videos, they are at facebook.com/howibuiltthis or on the NPR YouTube page. You can see my conversations with people like Stuart Butterfield of Slack and Jen Hyman of Rent the Runway and Troy Carter and Kevin Hart and so many more. So go check those out. We just dropped a brand new episode of How I Built This yesterday on Monday. The story of La Colombe Coffee. It is insane. These guys, Todd Carmichael and JP Aberti, were baristas in Seattle in the 80s, like before Starbucks blew up. And they had this vision for, making like an incredible elevated coffee experience, came to be known as third wave coffee. Such a cool story. So check that out. I will see you all back here on Friday. Thank you for being with us. Thanks again, Jeremy. And see you Friday.